The coffee shop hums like a hive, steam hissing, voices blending into a warm, caffeine-scented fog. Tanya Washington stands in line, clutching her worn purse, counting the bills like she's handling rare coins. $3.47. Enough for a small coffee if she skips lunch. She tells herself caffeine is a business expense today, since there's a job interview later, and maybe coffee will convince her hands not to shake like maracas during the handshake. But then she hears it hat laugh. You know how you can smell your least favorite food from a mile away? Same thing, but with sound. Her ex-Jerome, still in that I'm important suit, gold watch flashing like he's auditioning for a low-budget gangster film. Her heart slams into panic mode. Historians still argue whether the fight-or-flight response should include a third option called hug a stranger and hope for the best. Tanya, apparently, is the case study they might add her to textbooks one day. She spins, grabs the arm of the tall man behind her, and clings like she's just spotted the last lifeboat on the Titanic. Please pretend you know me, she whispers into a charcoal wool shoulder that smells like clean cologne and money she's never touched. The stranger freezes 2 beats, 3 in, then his arms wrap around her, slow and deliberate, one hand rubbing gentle circles on her back. It's okay, he says, voice deep enough to make the espresso machine pause mid-hiss. Jerome is closing in now, voice smooth but dripping with that old control. The stranger tilts his head just enough to say, "Is there a problem?" And the temperature drops 10 degrees. Jerome backpedals, muttering, leaving the air thick with tension and the smell of over-roasted beans. She stays pressed against this mystery man Benjamin. He'll later say until she's sure Jerome's gone. When she finally steps back, she notices warm brown eyes, laugh lines that don't come from cruelty, and a small scar on his chin that somehow makes him look more trustworthy, not less. He insists on buying her coffee and a sandwich, brushing off her protests like lint. They talk. He listens. Not that fake, listening actually cares about her answers. By the time she leaves for her interview, there's a business card in her purse. Benjamin Cross Industries. She recognizes the name everyone does, but it's the kindness she can't stop thinking about. The interview tanks harder than a 3 a.m. stock market crash. By the time she gets home, her phone rings. It's Benjamin. He says her composure impressed him, offers her a job managing his personal affairs. She's torn between pride and desperation, but something in his voice tells her it's not charity. It's trust. She says yes. And just like that, the hug that began as camouflage starts to feel like the beginning of something real. Benjamin's office isn't the cold marble and steel palace Tanya expected. It's warm, full of books, family photos, and a coffee mug that reads World's Most Adequate Boss. He talks to her from a leather chair across from hers, not from behind a desk like a gatekeeper. Nicole, his assistant, brings pastries and coffee, and Tanya's stomach growls so loudly it could join the percussion section of a marching band. Benjamin doesn't tease. He just slides the plate closer. The work is straightforward at first: organizing his calendar, managing personal finances, coordinating his charity appearances, but it's the way he works that surprises her. He treats her like an equal, not just a set of hands. She's startled to learn he knows about her business degree, her bookkeeping for 3 small companies, her ability to stretch $1 until it begs for mercy. Nicole must have done a background check so gentle it feels like a compliment. Weeks pass, and Tanya notices patterns. Benjamin remembers every small detail: her favorite coffee time, 9:15, never earlier, that her grandmother Dorothy struggles with transportation, that Tanya's shoes are wearing thin. Instead of pointing it out, he announces a company-wide clothing allowance, hands her the form, and insists she use it. Quirky detail. The allowance dates back to Cross Industries' early days, when Benjamin once showed up to a client meeting in mismatched socks and vowed no employee would ever be that unprepared again. Historians still argue whether the socks were actually mismatched or just avant-garde. The comfort of routine deepens their rapport, and Tanya feels safe enough to talk about Dorothy's bus troubles. The next day, Benjamin sets up a rideshare account for her grandmother, explaining it as good business sense, with a smile that says it's more than that. The gestures are small, but relentless: fresh flowers on her desk, books he thinks she'll like, Even sweet potato pie in the cafeteria, because he called Dorothy for the recipe. Dorothy, of course, suspects ulterior motives, but Tanya knows better. Then one cold night, her past barges in. She finds her apartment door ajar, Jerome inside, smooth as ever, until he turns cruel. He accuses her of being Benjamin's charity case, twisting her fears into barbed wire. And then steps on the stairs. Benjamin arrives, contracts in hand, reading the scene in a glance. He doesn't shake Jerome's hand, doesn't raise his voice, just stands beside Tanya like a quiet wall, telling Jerome it's time to leave. When Jerome pushes, Benjamin lays it out: security, police, whatever it takes. Jerome glares, promises it's not over, and storms out. Tanya's shaking, apologizing for not telling Benjamin sooner. He stops her with steady eyes. The only thing this changes is knowing you're braver than I thought. And then, softly, he admits his feelings aren't purely professional. She admits hers, too. That night, he insists she stay at his penthouse for safety. You're not imposing, he says. You're accepting help from someone who cares about you. That's different. Life in Benjamin's orbit settles into something both ordinary and extraordinary. She moves into a secure apartment he owns, company housing for key personnel, he calls it, though they both know it's his way of sleeping better at night, knowing she's safe. The line between boss and boyfriend blurs, but in the best way. They cook dinners together, debate travel plans over morning coffee, and learn each other's quirks. He finds her habit of humming while she works endearing. She teases him for folding laundry like it's a military inspection. At work, he introduces her not as my assistant, but as my partner, and in private, they talk about what their shared future might look like. Historians still argue whether the green scarf he gives her one snowy morning is a romantic gesture or just world-class strategic gift-giving. But either way, she wears it constantly. Dorothy, after meeting Benjamin, says he worships the ground you walk on and respects you, which is rarer, and Tanya tucks that blessing away like a talisman. The charity gala seals their public status as a couple. Tanya steps into the ballroom in an emerald gown that makes her feel like the leading lady in a classic film, and Benjamin beams as he introduces her to clients and donors. His speech from the stage is heartfelt enough to draw tears, crediting her with reminding him that compassion isn't a weakness. Later, in the quiet of his penthouse, he admits he'd been lonely before her, existing without really living. She tells him she'd been broken before him, afraid to trust. They agree they've been each other's rescue without meaning to be. Spring turns to their one-year anniversary, celebrated on the rooftop of Cross Industries under twinkling lights and city skyline. Friends, colleagues, and Dorothy gather as Benjamin drops to one knee, offering a ring and a life built together. She says yes through tears. Then he unveils plans for the Dorothy Washington Community Center, affordable housing for those escaping situations like she once did, a project they'll run side by side. 6 months later, in Dorothy's church, Tanya walks toward him in her grandmother's wedding dress. Their vows speak of partnership, protection, and building a life that matters. At the reception, Benjamin announces he's transferred half of Cross Industries to her, no conditions, no prenup, because what's mine is yours now and always. She protests. He tells her he trusts her completely. They dance their first dance as husband and wife, promising each other not just love, but the courage to keep building together. The pace softens as the night deepens. String lights sway above the garden. Laughter fades to a warm hum, and the air smells faintly of roses and champagne. They sway slowly, her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of a heart that once belonged to a lonely man, now hers. The world beyond their circle could spin with all its chaos, but here there is stillness, like the moment after the last note of a favorite song. She thinks of that first desperate hug in the coffee shop, how it felt like hiding in, how now, in his arms, it feels like home. The lights blur into gold halos, the grass whispers under their feet, and his voice, low and certain, promises, "We have forever." And for the first time, she knows it's true.